Putazos y Pendejadas Podcast.
Welcome to the big show. This was a weekend of big upsets, good fights, and good decisions and great matchups. I'm Mark Salinas. This is East Dallas's own David. David, how you been? How was your MSG weekend?
It was good. It was fun, man. Met a lot of cool people. Shout out to No Duck Zone podcast. Shout out to Boxing with Chris, Johnny Boy Boxing, and of course, TD Sports. All good fellas. Mark, we got to collab with them one day, man. I know you'd like to meet them. There's some really cool battles, man.
Hope to meet them one day, man. Hopefully they can join us on the show one day. Well, let's get into the weekend, man. PBC, Tank looked great, knocking out Martin in the 8th round with a big left, man. I think he solidified himself as the best 135, 140 pounder right now, David. Do you agree? And what did you think about the fight?
I don't agree. I think 135 and 140 is wide open. There's no man yet in either of those divisions. You've got 4 different title holders at 135 pounds. You got Shakur Stevenson with the WBC. You've got Lomachenko with the IBF. You have Barinchuk with the WBO, and then Tank Davis with the WBA. There's only one way to settle that, baby, and that's unify. Let's get those belts all put together, find out who's the undisputed champ, and it's time. As for the fight, it went just like everybody thought it was going to go. You know, Tank was a 7-1 favorite in this fight, so it was no surprise to see him beat Frank Martin. Martin put up a good fight at the beginning, Mark. He showed us some good skills. He touched up Tank a lot in that fight, too. If you look at Tank's face, he was swelling on the right side of his face. He got touched up in that fight. But, you know, the Ghost was quick, showed some good movement, showed some good counters, but he just eventually tired out, man. Tank was applying that pressure from the very first round. You know what some people don't give Tank more credit for? Is his chin, because he caught some pretty clean shots. I don't think I ever saw him buckle at all. And Frank Martin can crack, man. And he's not a KO puncher, but he can crack. And he caught Tank pretty clean. Tank showed a really good chin as he was pressing. When Frank had his best success was when he had the fight in the middle of the ring. When he got in trouble was when he was on the ropes. That's actually what ended up leading to the knockout. And one last thing, Mark, that left uppercut, it's got to be one of the hardest punches in boxing, man. Anytime I've seen him land that left uppercut on someone, they're usually hurt really bad or they get knocked out. That was the shot that froze Martin against the ropes before Tank landed that last left hand to put him on the canvas.
Hey, that's a real good point, man. Tank, not a lot of people give Tank credit for that, but he can take a real big chingazo, man. He can take a real good punch, and he's taken good ones from other fighters as well. And I guess it's part of his. He must know it because it's part of his watching you, do your thing and breaking you down. Maybe he just braces for it, like he knows what he can take. Maybe that's how smart he is. Now, Frank Martin did look good at the beginning, David. Was it more of Frank Martin having what it takes to be a world champion, or was it more of Gervonta just doing his thing where he's just studying and figuring him out, and then when he knows exactly what he does and exactly when to strike him, he takes him out? Is it more of that, or was Frank Martin that good?
I think both things can be true, Mark. I think Frank Martin is a skilled fighter. I think there's no doubt about that. But I also think Tank was doing that because he knew, and he even said it after the fight, I knew he was going to wear down. I knew he was going to get tired because he wasn't going to be able to keep up that activity and that movement. So, it's a little bit of both. And, everybody knows, too, Frank Martin looked like shit at the weigh-in, man. His face, he was like Skeletor. His face was very sunken in. His eyes looked droopy. He had a hard cut making weight. You knew that took a toll on him, and he wasn't going to be able to stay on his bike the way that he was throughout that fight. Not for the full 12 rounds.
David, at this point, man, I really don't honestly, just seeing from what Tank did this weekend, and I'm a big Shakur guy. I don't think Shakur's ready right now. Not right now. I think he needs a couple more fights. I don't want to see that right now. But Lomachenko is a good belt for him to take. But is that still the fight that we all want to see, man? I mean, that just loses its luster.
It's starting to get a little stale. I'll admit, it's almost at its expiration date for me. 5 years ago, 4 years ago would have been a best time for that fight. Tank would have been 24, 25 years old. Loma would have been around 30. That would have been more ideal, I think. But we all saw Loma's resurgence. Even though I don't rate Kambosos that high, Lomachenko still looked good in that fight. And it looks like he still has it. Even this 35-year-old Lomachenko would be far and away the best opponent Tank Davis has ever faced. I think that fight still needs to happen. Loma has a belt at 135 pounds. It's time for Tank to start. He's never unified in his career. Tank Davis has never unified a belt in he's 30 years old. He hasn't unified a belt in any division that he's fought in. It's time. He's 30 years old now. No more fighting guys moving up in weight to fight him. No more fighting guys that are not experienced as he is. It's time to fight the top guys in his division.
Yeah.
And if Lomachenko is next, let it so be it. I think that could still be a good fight.
I think it's still a good fight. I think it's the one he should take. And I honestly think it's going to be an easier fight for him now than we were talking about it years past. I think that's a good belt for him to get. I don't want to see Shakur with him right now. I don't think Shakur's ready for a Tank right now. I think he still needs a ways more. I mean, from 25 to 30, Tank is a freaking way different fighter, man. And true. Maybe Shakur will be a way different fighter a year from now.
You know what?
I think Shakur is on a like at the end, Shakur should have a greater career, but they're not at the even playing field right now. I think Shakur a year from now, yes, can beat a Tank. 2 years from now, definitely. But a year from now is better than right now. I think he should take the Loma fight. Tank should take the Loma fight, get another belt, and try to unify, hopefully later with Shakur, and then we'll see a good fight there. David Benavidez, man, I thought he looked damn good. He damn near shut out the heavyweight, the light heavyweight he faced. He went to the body the same. He still has good combos. He looks really solid. He doesn't look all flabby. He looks real mamau now. Those two human beings in there that night were fucking big. Wait, there were some big vatos in there, but I like the way David Benavidez looks at light heavyweight. He's fucking solid. His chest ain't all wango like her boy Mike from Los Tres Chingones likes to call him Benachichis. At 175, Benavidez ain't Benachichis anymore, man. He looks good. He looks solid. Roll my mouth. And, we couldn't see the power because he said it. He was hurt. But even though he was hurt, man, he was putting the work into the body like he does all the time. That freaking long-ass jab he knows how to work. He works the body so good that I think the whole division is going to be on notice. He's younger than all of them. I think he beats Bivol, better Abiv. He beat this guy. I think he's going to take over that division. But he did say he wants to go down to 168 again. But Chinga, man, I'm not a David Benavidez fan, and I'll still say it to this day. They did not say it on the zone. The man is not Mexican.
He ain't Mexican, is it?
David Benavidez ain't Mexican. He's Mexican Ecuadorian. Let's get it right. He's not full-blooded Mexican.
He ain't Mexican, is it?
Now it's all good, right? It's all good because
it's all good, bro. Hey, you got this much Mexican in you.
You're not the
right,
Mexican.
bro.
You're not the Mexican monster, though. Don't say that.
He ain't Mexican, is it?
We'll let him in, but don't say you're not. Don't say you're full-blooded Mexican. But David, I think he looked good. I think he put everybody on notice. I don't care that he was hurt. I don't think he looked bad. The power wasn't there. Man, the combos are still there. The attack to the body is still there. He's more athletic than all those guys. Light heavyweight division is his to take, man.
Mark, I was not that impressed with what I saw from Benavidez on Saturday. And we got to put this into context. This is why, all right? He looked average to me because, yes, Gvozdyk was a former champ at 175 pounds. Yes, Gvozdyk was the bigger man in the ring, but he was 37 years old, Mark. He had a 3.5-year layoff. And while he has come back for about a year, he's been back in the boxing game. He took 3 fights against very soft opposition, and he didn't look that great against those guys either. Benavidez was not the bigger man in the ring that night for the first time in his career, and it showed. His power didn't look like it was there. And the main thing that he was known for, his activity, he didn't even have that. He got tired around the 5th or 6th round. The one thing that he did have, though, was a speed advantage. He was the faster man in there. And he was even, and I don't just mean hand speed. I mean like head movement. He was moving around Gvozdyk's punches pretty easily early in the fight. So it wasn't surprising to do that against a 37-year-old. But I think Benavidez gets beat by any of the top 175-pounders. And I think he agrees with me because in the press conference, he all but said, I'm going back down to 168. All he kept talking about was, these guys are bigger than me. Oh, yeah? Well, you're bigger than everybody else at 168 pounds. Now you know how it feels, Vato. One of the main reasons why he wants to move to 168 is the Canelo fight. But I think he also sees, yeah, it's the money, man. It's the money. There you go. There you go. But I think it's also like, oh, shit, I got to work a lot harder for my money at 175 than I do at 168. It's just so weird that you were very impressed by what you saw and I wasn't. Yeah. We do got to mention, he said he was hurt and he did hurt.
Considering the injury, man, he looked good.
Yeah. Well, one of the hands was in camp and the other, like he hurt a tendon in the wrist. Mm-hmm. And the other hand was really swollen. He hurt it in the 3rd round of the fight. So we can give the guy a little bit of a break. He was punching or working with 2 injured hands. That could explain why he wasn't really committing with his shots. But man, oh man, you know what those injuries don't have anything to do with? His cardio. And he didn't have the cardio for the second half of that fight, Mark. If that's one of his biggest advantages in fighting, man. If he doesn't have that, he's in trouble.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't know if it was the cardio or he was hurt, but I think he had put so many rounds in the bag and did so much body work that I thought he kind of just made, after he explained his injury. Yeah, but I didn't think that watching it. I thought he's slowing down, or I thought Gvozdyk was just trying to do something, get back in it, because I did give him a couple of the late rounds. You could tell he got a little bit more,
3 or 4.
He was trying to get going because he knew he was behind on the cards.
I think Gvozdyk did turn it on towards the late.
So he turned it on, and we saw what we saw. But I like what I saw, man. He's still aggressive to the body. He's athletic enough to beat all those guys. You know, I think against Bivol, Benavidez, and those Ukrainian, Eastern European dudes, those guys, they do all the basic boxing stuff insanely great. The jab, the 1-2, the 3 sometimes. But it's basically the 1-2, coming in, coming out, throwing it fast, throwing it off speed, some feints, but really not a lot to Bivol or Benavidez. They just do basic European perfect, like your NBA Euros, right? Your NBA Euros, they do everything right. The bounce pass, they do everything technically right. But they ain't going to slam it like Michael Jordan and, KD and, freaking shoot half-court three-pointers like our boys, the Splash Brothers from Golden State. They're not going to do that, but they do the basic NBA stuff better than our NBA guys over here. But, I mean, everything else points to Benavidez' strength, speed, combos, body work, movement. I give it to Benavidez.
He's food, brother. He's food for those guys. And I think he knows it. Otherwise, he'd be pushing for the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol. He's not doing that. He's food, bro.
I hope he stays there, though. I don't stop chasing Canelo. It ain't going to happen. I think he needs to stay at 175 and beat these guys and make a name and possibly become a heavyweight champ. I can see him doing that. Gary Antoine Russell lost to the 29-year-old veteran Puello that most of us wrote off, man. We didn't think he was much, but Salas Boxing Gym pulls it off again, man. Shout out to El Maestro, Mr. Salas, from Salas Boxing Gym, Yankee, De Leon Boxing, Kevin Brown, Angelica Rascon, all of our friends out there at Salas Boxing Gym, man. They've been having a hell of a comeback year this year. What do you think about that, man? I had to laugh.
Well, I mean, Salas is no stranger to being in the corner for upsets, Mark. He's done it with Ugas. He did it with Joe Joyce a couple of times against Dubois, and then I think Parker. And Manny Pacquiao. Like he actually, I didn't know he had he trained two guys that beat Pacquiao. So Salas has been there and pulling off some big wins when people aren't expecting him to. So congratulations to Ismael Salas, very underrated trainer. I mean, he's getting his recognition, but I don't think many people know exactly of him, and they should. He's a very, very talented and knowledgeable trainer. That said, going into this fight, man, it's just frustrating because you kind of see Gary Antoine Russell taking the same career path as Gary Russell Jr., his older brother. Gary Russell Jr., very talented fighter, but he just wasn't active enough. Missed out on a lot of great fights that could have been made. Even his own improvement as a fighter got stalled because he just didn't fight enough. It's starting to happen with Gary Antoine Russell as well. I think it'd been 9 months since the last time he was in the ring. But Puello was a sharp dude, man. He was giving Gary Antoine Russell a hard time. I'm just glad they didn't try to take it away from him. You know, Gary Antoine Russell's with the PBCs. He was the house fighter. They made the right call. It was a pretty close fight, but it just looked to me like Puello did the better work in the ring. He was more impressive in the rounds that he did win. So shout out to them. Congratulations to Puello and the underdog. We actually had a couple other underdogs pull off the upset too, Mark.
Yeah, talk to us about Elijah Garcia. What did you see in there, and what did you expect?
I expected Garcia to win. You and I both, Mark.
Yeah,
very high on this guy.
him.
Yeah, we saw him against Rosendiz.
He had a very good year last year.
Then he got sick. He was supposed to fight on Tim Tszyu. It was the Tim Tszyu pay-per-view. He was supposed to be on the undercard or the prelim, and he had to pull out because he was sick at the very last minute. Well, you know, he comes back here, and he just looked very listless, man. His punches didn't have snap. He didn't look really strong in there. He kept getting hit by the right hand. Bro, he would stand there with the high guard, and no matter if he kept his gloves close, he was getting hit on the around the glove. If he kept them a little separated so he could see, he was getting hit between the gloves. He could not get out of the way of the right hand. It was maddening to me. And he kept moving to the same. He kept dipping. Well, he's left-handed, so he was dipping to the left, and he kept running into the right hand from Kyron Davis. I mean, geez, man, it was really frustrating and surprising to see. I heard this on the Ring IQ channel where he said that Elijah Garcia spends most of his camps losing weight instead of working on his craft and training. That's really unfortunate, man. You got a young guy who has some potential and could go far in middleweight. Middleweight division is wide open, bro. It's wide open. And a fighter with his talent can go in there and snag a title like that. But, you know, if he doesn't get if he's just having fat camps and he's just working off weight in order to prepare for fights, he's never going to reach that high level at 160 pounds.
Chinga, man. I'm going to go ahead and chalk it up to the fucking Edgar haircut, man. That's what you said on Saturday. I'm just going to chalk it up to the Edgar haircut, man.
It was an Edgar / mullet, bro.
You know, man, Elijah's got to look, Elijah. You need to go back to the drawing board. Pinche high fade, Caesar, boom, the classic Chicano, man. Just the high fade. Go back to the basics, man. The classic Chicano. Go back to the basics. You'll be all right. We still believe in you. No more fat camps.
No
Start
more
working on your shit. High fade is the first
high
thing.
Fade,
go back
no
to your roots. Camp. High fade, homie, pinche Caesar, and you'll be all right. David, let's jump into the zone matchroom card where we had another upset. And David, you mentioned they did the right thing with Puello and they gave him the fight. They did the right thing in Puerto Rico and they gave it to Liam Paro, even though the referee was trying his darndest to take that fight away from him. Matias was upset, David. He was upset in his own hometown. Jay Panda has lost 2 in a row also, David. I want to know what you think about that. You know me and trainers. Is there trouble out there with Panda and David? One last question for you, man. Did we crown Matias too early?
I don't think so. I mean, we were both spoke very highly of Matias. He's still a fighter that I want to see fight. But I don't think we jumped the gun in assuming that he wasn't as good. I mean, he lost to a good fighter, man. He was a heavy favorite to win that fight too. But I had a bad feeling about that fight the whole week, man. And Liam Paro is a solid fighter. He doesn't do a lot of spectacular things. He doesn't have excellent KO power. He's not slick and quick, but he's a good fighter who does a lot of good things in there. And he stood up to Matias. He went to his house and beat him up in his front yard. He didn't show that he was scared of him or his power. He was never intimidated by the moment. I think we should just give Paro his props. He pulled off the upset. He won the fight fair and square. But I don't think we crowned Matias too early. People were not calling Matias out for a long time. And he had that belt, and no one was saying his name. The only guy that I could remember saying Matias's name was Regis Prograis when he was still champ prior to the Haney fight. That's the only guy that was calling out Matias. And I will make a prediction about this, Mark. I bet Liam Paro is going to have an easier time getting a unification fight than Matias did.
Now, David, do you want to see Matias and Liam again? I mean, 140, now that this happened, became really, really interesting again, right? Because now you got a new champion. Matias is in the outs. You got Devin Haney still there. He had shook up the division. I personally would like to see these two dudes do it again. And I'd like to see it in Australia because I think it's a bunch more money. Hey, David, Australia's coming up, man. This guy, Liam Paro. You got Tim Tszyu in the mix. You got a couple of other guys out there. Australia's making some noise, man. They're coming up, man. I kind of like this little movement they got going on over there. Now, Liam Paro.
Wait. Before we get into that question, I want to ask you something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Did they move up on your pound for pound continent ranking?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, the rankings stay the same as we speak. They
still didn't pass Antarctica.
No. They were above Antarctica.
They were above Antarctica?
Yeah, it was. I think it was the Euros. I think it was the UKs that were under Antarctica. Yeah. Australia was definitely around
higher than Antarctica.
The bottom third. I don't know where exactly. We'll find out.
But they were higher than Antarctica.
They were about halfway to the bottom third, yeah. But David, who's bigger in Australia, Tim Tszyu or the new world champion, Liam Paro?
Oh, Tim Tszyu, easy, bro.
Yeah,
Tim Tszyu, easy.
Bigger, yeah.
But Liam's the bigger name for sure. But the talk of the town right now is Liam Paro.
Yeah. Do you want to see that rematch in Australia? And do you think it'll make more money?
It would. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like to see a rematch. But listening to Eddie Hearn at the post-fight press conference, he's already talking about trying to set up a Devin Haney-Paro unification fight in Australia. And when they ask him, well, what about Matias? He says, well, we need to build Matias back up to a title shot. And he's kind of been mentioning Regis Prograis and Matias in a kind of, like a comeback fight for both fighters. Both of these guys are coming off a loss. Kind of makes sense for them to face each other. Would have been better if they both had the titles had they been fighting, but I'd still take that fight. I think that's a good fight. Both guys had their limitations, but one thing they both can do is crack.
Well, that night, Tito Trinidad was in the house, David, and they were in his home country, but they were in his hometown, Bayamon. and the crowd was going absolutely berserk for this guy. They absolutely love Tito Trinidad out there. Who wouldn't? And I heard Sergio Mora there talking about Tito Trinidad. I had something to say to Sergio Mora. He was talking about how much he's beloved, and they gave him a standing ovation. It was so loud in there they could barely get through the broadcast with Tito Trinidad. I mean, they really love this guy. But then Sergio, the Latin snake Mora, decides to open his fucking mamadora about Miguel Cotto, saying if you go to every person in this arena and ask him who is their favorite fighter in Puerto Rico, Miguel Cotto or Trinidad, 100% they're going to say Trinidad. And I remember he said this because I texted you guys. He said it at about 8:19, 8:20, 8:21, I don't know, around that time in the broadcast. And nothing, Mr. Sergio Mora, about your career says that you can open your mamadora up and put Cotto's mouth in there. So please refrain from disrespecting my boy Miguel Cotto for no goddamn reason, because nothing, absolutely nothing on your career says that you can even mention that dude's name. Miguel Cotto's my boy. Sergio, you were wrong for that. Ni modo, like I got this. Anyway, that's what I gotta say. You want to add to that?
Huh, bro?
Hey, man, you don't talk about Miguel Cotto for no reason like that. And then the Latin snake with your career, nah, you're out of here, bro. You're out of here. Putazo Pendejas says you need to apologize to Cotto, man. Cotto
right now
is the shit, man. Cotto does not deserve that. He ain't even know, man. Imagine Cotto there watching the fucking fight at home with his kids on fucking the night before Father's Day, and he has to listen to that bullshit. Hell nah. You're wrong for that, Sergio. Latin Snake, you messed up. That's PYP Boxing for this weekend. We'll catch you next week. We don't know if we'll have any good matchups. We got a couple of Euro fights out there, but they're kind of but we'll
all our European subscribers, I apologize.
Hey, we will
Mark
watch
didn't mean that.
We will watch and we will
edit that
with respect.
We'll fix it in post.
But anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Listen, we're on our way to 1,000. We're at about 724. Please like, subscribe, comment, get us to 1,000. We're almost there, guys. Organically, we didn't pay for any of these. This was all word to mouth and all you guys subscribing. So thank you guys. We'll catch you next week.